Good morning. Welcome to my channel, my YouTube channel. My name is David Okon, and I'm talking about the cost of living. I've been talking about this topic in this program for the past coming now to maybe 8 months or more. And thank you everyone who have been subscribing, those who have been leaving a comment, people who have been sharing or watching the video and helping in any way possible, clicking notification bell so that you can get the new videos I am producing. And I've been talking about the cost of living because it is a major problem in the world. It is global, and it started when the government failed to intervene in the crisis involving energy in the first place, and in the second, and food in the other. The cost of food, including problems with inflation, interest rate, began to get worse with COVID-19. But the background to this problem, in my opinion, I'm looking at this material from America. Material illustrating the financial crisis which began in America in 2007 and 2008. It's called the credit crunch. If you watch the rest of my video and watch the rest of this one as well, if you like, and because this is part of the continuation of the video, and let me know what you're thinking. And there was a financial crisis in America, but the trigger of the recent crisis of the cost of living, say, the war in Ukraine. These are crises involving the global economy and caused mainly by politics and conflicts around the world, government policies, and global state attitude. People are always fighting military war, fighting economic wars. There's a lot of violence, and that's why the cost of living and other crises happen, and it has been happening for decades, and for decades it's not going to stop anytime soon. And that's why I spoke in two components of progress. The first is actually development, the second is culture. Development actually produces wealth through instruments like the economy, technology, engineering, science, and also invest in infrastructures, including social infrastructures such as schools, hospitals, public transport, employment. Employment actually is a part of social welfare, and actually social welfare is in benefit, money given in terms of they call it benefit, but it probably looks like a grant because we don't pay it back. It's given as a right. Some of them are actually given discretionarily, which means it is not your right, but if the giving opportunity, the giving organization sees fit give it to you, that they give. The rise of the discretionary benefit in the developed world is a sign that government is making it harder, almost impossible for people to get help. The reason for this, like I said previously in other videos, because of privatization. Privatization means the government focuses national and global resources, economic resources, in developing the market economic system, and it also frees these institutions, the market institutions. Freedom means the government do not regulate these institutions. They do as like this, and mostly there are multimillionaires and multimillionaires in the world. If you look at the market estate, economic estate of the market economy, you will conclude that the new rulers of the world are actually the marketeers, the multimillionaires, the multi-billionaires, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, people like Richard Branson in the UK. All these millionaires and billionaires are actually the ones who control society, the deciding factor in modern politics and economy. And that's what I've been trying to talk about. The logic of my speaking is that if you are having a problem, you need to be an expert on the causes not only on the problem, you have to be an expert on the cost of living. Because the cost of living kills if you're not careful. Because you cannot access medicine, you cannot access food, you cannot access drinking water. You can't live in a property. You're going to be homeless. You can't find work because there will be no work. The economy will be closing down. Beginning from now, going forward, because the cost of living is a sign. The cost of living is a crisis now. We see it's a sign, and it will carry on. And the risk for the majority of the population, the 90 to 95% of the population who work for a living, who are defined to be poor, are the ones who are victimized. I'll be repeating this point over and over. If you watch this video and you have watched the previous video, you will probably notice the similarity of me making this point, because they are key. I cannot afford for people to look at losing track of this basic information. The genesis of the cost of living as a crisis, or other crises relating to welfare development, especially the one relating to the majority of the population who work for a living. When they are affected, these problems, these crises are created by the state by neglecting the public sector. The public sector, under modern capitalism is going to close down. They cannot close down the public sector. If the public sector is closed down, people are going to die. It doesn't matter which country you're living in. You may think you're in Africa, Middle East, or in the developed world, the West, the East, America, Europe. The same, because of globalization. Globalization produces harmonization, which means what happens in one country is copied throughout the globe to make management and delivery or otherwise administration more effective. It's a good thing because people can travel through the borders. Africans, Europeans can go to Africa, Africa can come to Europeans. People can actually commingle. That is in the future. The process is called globalization. Creating a global village, worlds without borders, global citizenship, one currency, okay, one world government, religion, money, you name them. It's a good thing for people. They'll come together, they live peacefully. Peace is necessary. I would say that the creator of peace, the fundamental creator of peace in the world is actually cultural education. People should change the way they think about themselves, about other people. You think about yourself to respect yourself. You think about other people to respect them. Then you are going to be culturally proficient. You're going to be a useful citizen of the world. You are going to be a more effective player in the global economic platform. And this is actually, I believe for sure that we can achieve greatness culturally and also developmental. In the developmental front, we are succeeding because of technology, because of knowledge, because of wealth. We are failing developmentally because of violence. We are turning wealth and technology, science into weapons. We are weaponizing things we produce because we are not culturally, we are culturally uneducated. We are poorly educated as people. I know sometimes it may be difficult for people to realize this, but if you look at your life, if you're in a relationship with a man, with a woman, with children, with adults, with parents, with your kids, there is always an underlying violence, disagreement, indiscipline. In schools, there is truancy. And that is evidence that culturally we are struggling. But there is hope in the sense of at least culture, in that we are educatable. We can use our mind to think. The way we think actually produces the outcome from our thinking. If we think peace a long time consistently, actually we begin to behave peacefully. And in behaving, we begin to build infrastructure for peace. I believe the answer may be as simple as that. The implementing, the practicality may not be simple. It may take time, it may take decades. But my purpose is actually to reveal this information, to supply this information, And I invite people to think about it. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to it. The best way to support the channel is to subscribe. We need to grow so that many people can watch us, and so that we get views, different perspectives from people on this topic. I want to hear people actually giving me feedback, and because it enriches the program, it actually informs me more to support what is conceptually very accurate, in my opinion, so that we build it into a coherent form of learning platform, learning material, robust and dynamic principles. You can use these ideas and information through the decades. I believe it is helpful because I have identified the source of our necessities in terms of transformation, in terms of development and culture. That is very important. It is a very important classification. And I want us, you who are now watching this, to take it very seriously. If you are enthusiastic about it, leave a comment below. If you are not engaging, no problem. I will continue to post videos with this information until I'm able to attract as many people as can actually contribute positively, grow this channel, and to actually focus on this information. I believe it's a good formula to contribute to peaceful process across the globe. I do this as a human species, as a member of a human species, because I believe the future of humanity is in our human hands. The governments of the world, of the UK and of the rest of the global countries, are increasingly telling us to look after ourselves, take responsibility for our lives. It is something called empowerment, which is a good thing. You don't want to be dependent on other people, but we need our culture. We need our culture, because if we keep fighting, you call your neighbors strangers, and some member of the human species are branded as terrorists, or black people, or Asians, or whites, or English, or Scottish, then culturally we are failing, and we cannot be peaceful, because if we actually discriminate against one another, that is an evidence of extreme violence, and that makes us wicked, practice wickedness, because we practice hatred, racial hatred, all sorts of hatred, and hatred is a form of wickedness. And we now know that there is no peace for the wicked, because they are always at war with each other. And my hope is that if we begin to grasp what I'm trying to explain, we begin to actually see the light. Our eyes begin to open. It may sound simplistic or even simple. Yes, probably it's simple. Certainly not simplistic. Because anything involving human being and the human nature is complex, and that's a good thing as well. It's exciting because the cost of living is a crisis. It's an opportunity. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity for us to move a step forward. In the people who, in these countries of the world, in the developed, in the rest of the world, individuals facing the cost of living crisis have now the opportunity to take control of their lives. We are transitioning economically and also politically away from a world where the government provides public sector. We are looking at the beginning of the end of the public sector economy, and that in itself means what we are going to be left with is the private sector. That means businesses. Your life is your business now. It's not the business of the state. That is ending, and it is ending gradually. The beginning is now. The beginning of the end is now happening, and because of technology and information and all the other dynamics, the rate of pace, the pace of change is very fast, and the public sector is probably going to be extinct within 10 to 20 years, and that is really very close. And we're going to be facing crisis. similar or even the same to the cost of living. Because if technology takes over running the society in terms of employment, everybody who works for a living to depend on their work are going to lose their jobs. And if they do, they are going to lose their livelihood. Their welfare will be dead. The government being away, being absent, because it will have been privatized anyway. The government is also moving from public to private. We hear about corporate governance. But these are actually private big corporations. They have board of directors. The board of directors actually like ministers and head of state. The chief executive officer is like the prime minister or the president of the country, because they control the global economy now. The corporations, the big corporations. And that's what I mean by privatizing the state. The country is being sold off, which is also a good thing because it frees us. It frees us from the grip of the state. We have been under the occupancy of the state for so long. So privatization is a good thing as long as it is done peacefully. My opinion is that it is done violently now. It's done as if in a state of war. In the sense that we are actually culturally very uneducated, beings culturally uneducated, so we fail to conduct affairs, especially complex and dynamic affairs peacefully. We don't understand peace very well because we are educated in such a way as to confront the rule over other people, is to control other people, and we're very destructive also. To rule over other people, we have to use force and violence. Consent is a theoretical idea which doesn't actually operate. We cannot implement consent at all in practice as long as we still operate the rule of law, the rule of policy, the rule of practices, procedures, and the rule of society by the few over the many, by the multimillionaires over the poor who work for a living. The nature of employment is such as to exercise this rule where an employer actually rules over employees. Everywhere you look in schools, school authorities actually rule over students, and there is rebellion everywhere. People rebel in society. Children are blamed because even the nature of relationship between parents. The parents are now the new slave masters. They are trying to enslave their children. Children are fighting back. So we have a distorted cultural society, and my hope is by realizing the state of affairs, what our situation looks like. By doing so, I believe we begin to take steps to solve the problem. And I have already proposed that the best place to start is to think, to learn as much as we can, and also to interact with each other, be involved in families, in communities, in societies. We learn to concentrate. A lot of children are now suffering from something called attention deficit disorder. Children cannot concentrate, adults cannot concentrate. And if you don't concentrate, you lose the discipline you need as a human being to acquire the power to bring change, to learn new things, and to acquire new knowledge with which to bring change, positive change. I will be talking about this over and over, and going forward probably into the future. I will be restructuring this exercise more and more so that we are more proficiently delivering, more efficiently undertaking this process. So let us go back a bit on the very topic, the cost of living, and let us look at the crisis, 2007-2008 crisis in America. We are now looking about how these actually destroyed the financial institution. We're looking about what happened to a financial institution called IndyMac. And IndyMac was the first reasonable institution to run into trouble in the United States of America, which was based in California, and it is called Indemark. It's something called a spin-off of a country financial. So you're looking at the financial institution getting into trouble. And like I said, subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed. Subscription is free, it takes seconds. Click like if you like the video. Click the notification bell for more so that you don't miss out on anything. So before its failure, Indemark Bank was the largest savings and loan association in the Los Angeles market and the 7th largest mortgage loan originator in the United States. Loan originator is what it says. People who actually sit down and assess creditors, borrowers. They assess borrowers to see if they are fit to borrow money. In the case of the 2008 and 2009 financial crisis, there was a deliberate policy of American government, the conservative government, the Republican, under George W. Bush. They decided to authorize the market, the private companies, to provide public housing for the majority of poor people who are poorly educated, who are vulnerable, who are actually in poverty. Even if they work, the nature of payment, the condition of work kept them perpetually in poverty. And for the government to instead to have given them public housing directly using public sector mechanisms. And because, like I said, the government has the agenda globally to shut down the public sector, therefore anything public cannot be deliverable. So the deliverability, as they thought, was to actually bypass the conventional method of management and delivery within the private sector, attempting to do what is undoable in a practical sense, to give public housing by the private companies. I say that was wrong. It is wrong today. It's happening today in the UK, in Europe, across the globe. The state is trying to use the private sector to provide public service, and this does not work. It wastes money. The government pours billions and trillions to private companies who waste it. I say they waste it because they invested in capital and infrastructure, which is wealth. The revenue side of investment suffers, and that's why, for example, in the UK, in the United Kingdom where I live, the waiting list in the waiting time on the NHS service, National Health Service, is extremely long. And if you try to book an appointment, you are not given an appointment if you are on a government program. Especially if you don't pay for your medicine, if you don't pay for your treatment. And generally, the government actually, public service actually, you access health free of charge at the point of need. And this is now shutting down because the government is not funding revenue infrastructure effectively. Revenue infrastructure is what you get to spend on bed, medicine, medical care, to recruit doctors, nurses, care workers, to build the kind of service infrastructure we can manage and deliver healthcare service. That's an example. This is repeated in the public transport, buses, train, tram in the UK, underground. Airlines is already privatized. It's supposed not to be privatized. The airline industry should not be privatized for the reason that international travel, even let's say air travel is now a necessity because we are living in a global community. People who cannot fly on airplane are going to lose out economically. Elsewise, if somebody wants to go on for treatment in another country, say in the European Union, if you live in Europe, you cannot do that if you can't afford to fly. We have the Euro. I think the Euro. I don't know what you call it. The Euro train. Can't remember. See the Euro tunnel and the Euro train. What do you call it? If you know the train, but I've forgotten what it is. If you know what it is, the train going into Europe from Britain, um, I have forgotten it, but there's an aeroplane, a train which goes from Europe from Britain to Europe through the Euro Tunnel, and I think it's the Euro train anyway. I think it has a specific name. That is an example of a train transportation system. I suspect it is also privatized, and it is wrong because every time you privatize public service, you are shutting it down for the rest of the population. The majority of the population begin to be excluded from public service, including health, education, housing, and the sample wait on temporary accommodation in the UK for 20 years. And you have parents with 2 or 3 children living in a one-bedroom property. They are overcrowded against the law. And the government, because it has refused to operate the public sector, is now paying private landlords to provide temporary accommodation. So if you live all your life in a temporary accommodation, you have no right to property. As simple as that. And sometimes because of benefit cap, and also bedroom tax, there is property poverty. There is a real risk of families in the UK, and what happens in the UK is most likely to happen in Europe and America, Australia, New Zealand, and Africa. Because you see, we operate the credit system to finance our countries. We also operate the system of taxation. Less and less we are operating the system of taxation, more and more we are borrowing. But we are borrowing now. We borrow to finance the private sector. And that is what happened in America with the financial system of borrowing, very complex system of credit. And this was operated to give mortgages. Mortgages are actually credit given to buy housing. And this was given to people who need housing in America, poor people who are poor educated mostly. And it created a lot of problems because there was they couldn't pay back their debt. So it stopped. First of all, when people began to buy, it actually pushed the house prices up because there was a lot of demand. So there was a bubble and boom which busted in the housing market. So that created the collapse. Something burst like that, it actually disappeared. It collapsed. And that was exactly what happened. So let's try to look at some of these stories, events, which happened, as long ago as 2007, but because I'm trying to paint a picture of this situation so that you understand where the trouble comes from. The trouble is when states fiddle with the economic system, when they actually shut down the public sector, and when they try to impose public service over private companies which are actually not designed to provide public service. This should change. If the government really wants to provide public service, it has to stop privatizing public sector. It has to restore the public sector with the sole purpose of providing public service. And in my opinion, I don't think it is necessary for countries to depend on credit system. That is wrong. I don't know what percentage it is, but it doesn't matter. If it's only 10%, it's not acceptable, but I think it's over 50% dependency. And this is what we know from reports. But in practice, I think it's more. I think increasingly going to the future, we're going to go full-blown, full-blast, 100% on the credit system so that our countries are actually bankrupted. Our countries are totally it's totally incapacitated as economies. So I believe this will change. I look at the failure of some of these banks. We're looking at something called the IndyMac Bank. If you know anything about the IndyMac in America, in California, in America, at that time, leave a comment below and give us more information and talk to us. Before its failure, IndyMac Bank was the largest savings and loan association in the Los Angeles market and the 17th Largest mortgage loan originator in the United States. Loan originator are the people who prepare and issue loans. Failure of IndyMark Bank on July 11, 2008 was the fourth largest bank failure in the United States history up until the crisis precipitated even larger failures, and the second precipitated even larger failures, and the second largest failure of a regulated SWIFT. When you talk about regulation, you talk about an institution regulated by the state. Only the state can regulate private business. IndyMark Bank's parent corporation was IndyMark Bancorp until the ICC's IndyMark Bank. IndyMark Bancorp filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in July 2007. So this is I've been going through this material to provide, some credence to what I've been saying. I'm not really been making empty claims. There are reports all over the internet, all over the libraries. If you look for them, and just giving an overview of all this information so that it gives more meat, it provides more meat to what I've been saying. IndyMark Bank was founded as Countrywide Mortgage Investment in 1985 by David S. Loeb and Angelo Mozzillo as a means of collateralizing countrywide financial loans too big to be sold, Freddie Mac and Freddie Mac. So it's a means of collateralizing countrywide financial loans too big to be sold to Freddie Mac and Freddie Mac. So collateralization is actually giving backup for your credit, security. So taking risk with debt in the process of doing transactions. In 1997, Countrywide spun off IndyMark as an independent company run by Mike Perry, who remained its CEO until the downfall of the bank in July 2008. The primary causes of its failure were largely associated with its business strategies of originating and securitizing Alt-A loans, and on a large scale, it was big. Unlike with any corporatized institution platforms, it's always big. And if you fail with a bank. From its inception as a savings association in 2000, IndyMark grew to the 7th largest savings and loan and 9th largest originator of mortgage loans in the United States. During the 2006, IndyMark originated over $90 billion worth of mortgages. That is huge. So IndyMark's aggressive growth strategy, use of Alt-A and other non-traditional loan products, insufficient underwriting, and credit concentration in residential real estate in the California and Florida market states, alongside Nevada and Arizona, where the housing bubble was most pronounced, and heavy resilience on costly funds borrowed from the Federal Home Loan Bank FHLB and from the brokered deposits led to its demise when the mortgage market declined in 2007. So IndyMark is a lender, is a facilitator of the credit economy. In the financial context, the lending and the borrowing for purposes of buying property, it was aggressive. It was actually focused on growth. It was, if you grow, you make more money. So they saw this opportunity. I think there was some element of greed, probably. Something else, probably corruption, I'm not so sure, but it was aggressive. It was actually growth strategy and using some instrumentation and other international non-traditional loan products. Non-traditional loan products are actually things which are actually going away from the norm, and such as some specific involving government intervention or backing certain loans like subprime mortgage. These are actually non-traditional loan products, subprime mortgage, which is actually lower quality or even no quality at all, because it was government backed. The financiers saw an opportunity to make money, and they did, and they operated this subprime mortgage, giving this mortgage, which is actually attracting a lot of interest, a lot of interest being charged to people who borrow this type of product and this loan to buy what was public housing. And these are our poor people who ordinarily would not have qualified for mortgages. But the government actually made an arrangement with the financial system, the credit financial infrastructure, platforms, and that actually provides a picture of why problem actually occurs. So you talk of insufficient underwriting. Underwriting is actually sit down and do an assessment, including risk assessment, and also manage the credit process, the credit facilities as effectively as possible. That was insufficient, and the reason already, as I've explained in the other videos, the reason for that was because the government actually said, you do it. We're going to support you. We're going to back you up. If you fail, we are there. And when the financial system failed, the government was there, and he used trillions and trillions of public money in America and across the globe to bail out this failed bank. So it was an homegrown. It was created by the government along with the financial institution. And these people should be clear. And because of this kind of behavior, there is always a problem where other crisis is created by things involving the state, like the war in Ukraine. Why should global government allow Ukraine and Russia to fight? There is no reason. I mean, if we are civil, like why we say we talk of democracy, we talk about civilization. What is the purpose of civilization? In America, in Europe, these are superpowers. Can they not speak to Russia and Ukraine? I know they are behind the idea of sovereignty, but this is total nonsense, because talk about globalization, you cannot have your cake and eat it. You don't want globalization and also talk about sovereignty. Globalization means the reducing of sovereignty. And so if the Western power, who are actually the masters, who are the authors of globalization, promoting capitalism, promoting marketization, promoting democracy, they sit there and fail to resolve a simple war between two countries, two mature countries, Russia and Ukraine. We allow these people to fight and destroy the global economy and kill people and destroy homes, destroy livelihood. There's a lot of horror stories within the Ukraine, within Russia. There's a lot of people die. What kind of society are we? That is the solution here. Because you see, if we are talking about peace and we cannot resolve Ukraine, then these countries, these nations are actually a joke. We need to revisit our culture. We need to have respect for ourselves. If you're the president of America, Joe Biden, for example, or whoever they call themselves, your prime minister like Rishi Sunak in the UK, or whichever president in America, in France, Canada, you are too big to be fools. If you cannot run countries, step down. You cannot sit there and pretend for America to be a superpower for what? Europe, superpower for what? What are you doing in democracy? I mean, there are wars in Africa. You cannot stop it. What use are you? You are really worthless in terms of peace. And you should think twice. If you think you can just sit there as America or Europe or African leaders, if you are in Africa, you are a leader, you have power. What are you doing? Why are people fighting? People should stop fighting. If not, let us all go back to school and learn our culture. If you are a president of the world, learn respect. You get so much power. Like Putin, we allowed individuals like Putin to sway, to have so much power to sway a lot of influence across the global. That is not wrong. I mean, that is wrong. It's not right at all. These people, you are not really worth the power, the amount of, if you're the president of America, you are not worth to have the power, the level of power you have. And this is the problem. It is not in one country. It doesn't involve one person. We as human species are all in it together. What I'm inviting us to do is to listen genuinely, especially if you're the King of England, King Charles, if you're the Prime Minister of Britain, okay, if you're the President of France or the Chancellor of Germany, it doesn't matter where you are. Think and learn to be a good person. It's no good being in power when you are not a good person. A good person listens to ordinary people on the streets. You get to learn about listening to yourself, learn respect, have some respect for yourself. Otherwise, we need to rethink the way we manage our society. There is no point concentrating power in a country like America, concentrating power in individuals like President of America, if they are incapable of being culturally proficient. The fact that we are at war in Ukraine, the fact that the war in Ukraine has created the cost of living, and this country cannot solve the problem, is a major source of concern. It means our governments are fake. They are as fake as the economy of the globe, which is actually operating the credit system. And there is no basis for the global government to operate the credit system. It is not necessary. There is a lot of wealth. Is that we change the way we think. We have to be culturally educated. Cultural education means peace, thinking peace, and acting peacefully. There is so much violence. What happened in America is a form of violence. Economic violence, financial violence, because a lot of people suffer poverty. Instead of the states of America and the global countries providing support for poor people, who are the majority, 90-95% of the global population, governments, the one you said, allocated trillions and trillions of US dollars in every respective countries to support the super rich who are actually running the economy like dogs. Even dogs can be clever. This is completely stupid. And it is, I mean, if it's not deliberate, then you have to be really dumb. And it's so dangerous to give so much power to somebody who is clueless. If you are clever, you shouldn't have created the financial crisis of 2008 and 2007 and 2008. So as we have seen, still looking at the INDEMAC strategy of trying to grow and using an economic system which is actually deficient, to say the least. So we look at its behavior in terms of how it manages real estate in the state of California and Florida, in these markets and in these states, and in areas like Nevada and Arizona. And we look at the housing bubble happening there. You see, being actually, they show sign of huge pronouncement in their troubles, you know, and we see also how they begin to rely on costly funds borrowed from organizations like Federal Home Loan Bank, FHLB, and from broker deposits, which actually led to its demise when the mortgage market declined in 2007. You know what decline is? It means it went down. And they got into trouble. INDEMAC often made loans without verification of the borrower's income or assets, and the borrowers with poor credit history. I already mentioned this. They should have done that. They should have they should have made loans with verification of borrower's income or assets. They did not do that because the government told them not to. Say, if something goes wrong, we're going to bankrupt. Why in the world should the government of America involve private companies to provide public housing? Because of wrong ideology, because of wrong policy related to that ideology, which actually created the problem when the government shut down the public sector. Not just in America, but now globally it's being shut down. And attempting to provide public service via private sector. Private sector cannot, they are unable, they are not designed to provide public service, period. And the British people, the people of the world should understand this. Whether you are watching this video or you are not, especially if you are watching it, think. And we need to work together as communities, as families, because we are the victims. Every time there is a crisis in the economy, poor people, the 90%, the majority of the population of the world are the ones who suffer. Multimillionaires and multi-billionaires get more money in a crisis. It happened in the UK. Under Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, he gave billions of UK pounds to energy companies who say they had made so much money, they do not know what to do, what to use the money for. If the energy company, which are actually multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires companies, say they made so much money, they do not know what to use the money for. That means the government should not turn around and give in tax break trillions of money, of dollars, of UK pounds to this energy company. And what the government should have done, should have actually supported this energy company to reduce the cost of energy. In this phase of giving trillions of money to this energy company, the government did not support them to reduce the cost of energy. The cost of energy remains up, and it continues to go up. The policy on price cap on energy is worthless, and it is actually the wrong policy because the level of the cap is too high. It keeps the cost of energy high. You begin to think somebody like Prime Minister Rishi Sunak with his Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, you think they are taking drugs? Hallucinogenic drugs. I think they are insane. They don't really think. But I don't know what's wrong with these people. Are they sleeping? Are they hypnotized? Are we actually dealing with people who don't know what they're doing? Now, how can you allow the British people to go through poverty on energy and food? You do nothing to help. In a rich country like Britain, and it's getting worse because of ideology. Because you cannot do anything. You are actually like a slave. The British government is actually under siege because it's so afraid of the market that it has turned the market. The market economic system into a god. The marketeers, the multimillionaires and the multi-billionaires are now the ones ruling the world, not the government we elect. If the government we elect at power, they would have told the market what to do to eradicate poverty. Poverty should be eradicated in Britain, in Europe, in America, globally within 10 years. Energy, food, name it, nobody should be in poverty at all. The reason for poverty in the world, whether also in Africa, because Africa is not being funded by Europe mainly, whether your country is poor or rich, the level of wealth is just because we are culturally uneducated, which we should be educated within a year because of the resources we have. Either we are willfully making people suffer, like states the world, we are making poor people, the majority of the population, we deliberately make them suffer, or we are totally insane. Because if we are not insane, we should be in power if you cannot run the economy. If you cannot eradicate running the economy, number one priority of running economy is actually eradicating poverty. Nobody should be poor. There should be nothing like the cost of living anywhere in the world now. And believe it or not, these people are living in their world, and I think the people of the world should start speaking to their local leaders. And to speak to their local leaders, you need to be clear about the problems. That's why I'm making this video, to promote freedom of speech. Because if you are informed, if you have knowledge, and watch this video, and go away and do a research, go and play if you want, go do your party, visit friends, take, exchange gifts, do whatever you like, but take responsibility and be an expert on economic issues, on the issue of finance, because it is your life, it's the life of your children, it's the life of humanity. In as much as we are trying to campaign to protect environment, our number one priority in terms of environment is the human element of the environment. And every environmental campaigner under the sound of my voice, open your ears and eyes and understand what I'm saying. You can do your demonstration as fast as you like, but you need to get your priority right. We are not wizards and witches to love trees and animals and not love humans. It doesn't matter how environmentally passionate you are. I don't agree at all, because you should love people. If you think you love trees, you love water, you love air, then love human first. It's a form of perversion and ridiculousness to pretend to love things like trees, even food. You should love food more than people. What's wrong with some people? I'm not accusing anybody, but if you're like that, then listen to what I'm saying and do it. Because it's your life, it's our life. We share this world. My interest is actually humanity. Whether I live, whether I die. I want to live or die and leave the world a better place for the rest of humanity. Because that's how we found the world. The people before us looked after the earth, looked after the world, looked after us. That's why we are still alive. We are practicing violence and ignorance. Ignorance is a form of violence. We are culturally found wanting. We need to go back to school. In your family, in your community. You can go to formal school if you want, but I don't think they teach culture there. You need to really set up a system of respect in your home. It is your life. The government has given you the opportunity to be empowered, to be independent, to not rely on the government. That's why they have closed down the public sector. The public sector is not going to be there anymore. So whatever is left as a residue now, make the best use of. If you struggle to find help in the hospital, in housing, everywhere you go, food, energy, you can't afford anything. It's because the public sector is shutting down. That's the only reason. People may talk to you about inflation and interest rate, but that is not the cause. Government can manage inflation, but you see, with a lot of wealth, we don't need inflation. If you're managing inflation, do so, because you're managing inflation and interest rate to protect the market. That is fine, because the market is the one which produces wealth. But you can do the same at the same time, helping people who need help. You can keep people 90% of the population waiting in poverty because you're still trying to help the super rich run their business. And when they make their money, they don't give it to us. So who are we? Who are not rich? Because the wealthy people are only about 5% of the global population, accessing almost 40 or 70% of the global resources. That is a form of violence. We cannot speak peace with this state of affairs. That's why I'm going to be talking about this in whether it's on YouTube or everywhere, wherever. I mean, it doesn't matter where I speak. I will be speaking about this and in a straight way, the way I'm trying to put forth in this program. So let us go back and look at the IndyMac situation to illustrate the point I'm trying to make. The IndyMac often make loans without verification of the borrower's income or assets, and to borrowers with poor credit histories. Appraisals obtained by IndyMac on underlying collateral were often questionable as well. As an Alt-A lender, IndyMac's, bear with me, IndyMac's business model was to offer loan products to fit the borrower's needs using an extensive array of risky option adjustable rate mortgage, option ARMS, subprime loans, 80 to 20 loans, and other non-traditional products. Ultimately, loans were made to many borrowers who simply could not afford to make their payments. Like I said in the other videos, like I said in this video, this material here serve to strengthen my proposition. In the mark, this is the report to regulate its involvement in those loans or tighten their using criteria. See the comments by Ruthan Melbourne, Chief Risk Officer to the regulating agency. On May 12, 2008, in the capital sector section of its large Q10Q, IndyMark revealed that it may not be well capitalized in the future. IndyMark reported that during April 2008, Moody's and Standard & Poor's downgraded its rating on a significant number of mortgage-backed security (MBS) bonds, including $160 million issued by IndyMark that the bank retained in its MBS portfolio. IndyMark concluded that these downgrades would have harmed its risk-based capital ratio as of June 30, 2008. These lowered ratings been in effect at March 31, 2008. IndyMark concluded that the bank's capital ratio would have been 9.27% total risk base. IndyMark warned that if its regulators found its capital position to have fallen below well-capitalized minimum 10% risk-based capital ratio to adequately capitalized 8 to 9% risk-based capital ratio, the bank might no longer be able to use brokered deposit as a source of funds. These were some of the concerns from the bank, but everything they talk about revolves around the credit economy, the credit system. Senator Charles Schumer, DNY, later pointed out that brokered deposit made up more than 37% of IndyMark's total deposits, and asked the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation (FDIC) whether it had considered ordering IndyMark to reduce its reliance on these deposits. So basically, some government officials were concerned looking at the way the credit infrastructure was being managed, with $18.9 billion in total deposit reported on March 31st. Senator Schumer would have been referring to a little over $7 billion in brokered deposits. These are big sums. While the breakout of maturities of these deposits is not known exactly, a simple averaging would have put the threat of broken deposit loss to IndyMark at $500 million a month. The regulators disallowed IndyMark from acquiring new brokered deposits on the 13th of June. So you can look at this information and to back up what we've been talking about. IndyMark was taking new measures to preserve capital, such as deferring interest payments on some preferred securities. The dividends on common shares had already been suspended for the first quarter of 2008 after being cut in half the previous quarter. The company still had not secured a significant capital infusion or found a ready buyer. IndyMark reported that the bank's risk-based capital was only $47 billion above the minimum required for this 10% mark. But it did not reveal some of that $47 million dollar capital it claimed it had as of March 31st, 2008 was fabricated. And it did not reveal that it was a fabrication. So there was a cover-up, there was some form of malpractice. And so we need to really pay attention to these things. Let us look at some of the information relating to the event. This is of interest because we remind us of the genesis of what has now become the credit crunch. The credit crunch now culminating to it's a continuation of that which occurred with the credit crunch in America to what we now know is the present cost of living crisis. So we look. Let's continue to look at this material with IndyMark. Bank plays into conservatorship by the U.S. government. When you talk of conservatorship taken over by the government to run it, when home prices declined in the latter half of 2007 and the secondary mortgage market collapsed, IndyMark was forced to hold 10.7 billion US dollar of loans it could not sell in the secondary market. So if it could not sell, it's actually bad deals, the bad asset now sitting there. So it's for the government to take it over. It's reduced liquidity. Its reduced liquidity was further exacerbated in late June 2008 when account holders withdrew 1.55 billion or about 7.5% of IndyMark's deposit. So there was a run on the bank. Sometimes when depositors begin to panic, they begin to withdraw money. But like I said, the future of panicking with your money is soon to be over. Especially the holding a run on the bank is going to be over because of the technology of money, and so the bank will be able to manage your money more effectively, such that you will control your money more because you won't be able to just withdraw your money when you want to. Maybe you will, but there will be no cash anyway. So what are you going to withdraw? Maybe you can withdraw your money because wherever you put your money is going to be controlled by the bank because they're going to be the statistics, they're going to be data. There will not be cash. When people withdraw something, they actually withdraw liquid cash. We are becoming a cashless society. In the next maybe 50 to 100 years, there will be no cash. That is to be really generous with time because it could be as early as 5 to 10 years. And more now, we are actually using cash cards. And there's something called we call it cryptocurrency. Something called cryptocurrency is now going around. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it has to do with digitization of the currency system. So it reduces liquidity further, like I said, and exacerbated. This actually, it reduced liquidity was further exacerbated in the late June 2008 when account holders withdrew 1.55 billion or about 75% of Indy's deposit. So it got more and more into the problem. This bank run on the threat followed the public release of a letter from Senator Charles Schumer to the FDIC and OTS. The letter outlined the senator's concern with IndyMark. While the run was a contributing factor in the timing of IndyMark's demise, the underlying cause of the failure was the unsafe and unsound way it was operating. Like I said before, it was actually either willful or just incompetence. On June 26, 2008, Senator Charles Schumer, a Democrat, New York, a member of the Senate Banking Committee, chairman of Congress Joint Economic Committee, and the third-ranking Democrat in the Senate, released several letters he had sent to regulators in which he was concerned that IndyMark's financial deterioration poses significant risk to both taxpayers and borrowers. So these were actually government officials, politicians, people who are responsible for policies and regulations. Some worried depositors began to withdraw money. On July 7, 2008, IndyMac announced on the company blog that it had failed to raise capital since its May 12, 2008 quarterly earnings report had been notified by bank and state regulators that IndyMac was no longer deemed well capitalized. And IndyMac announced the closure of both its retail lending and wholesale divisions, altered new loan submissions, and cut 3,800 jobs. On July 11, 2008, citing liquidity concerns, the FDIC put IndyMac Bank into conservatorship. That is actually government took it over. A bridge bank, IndyMac Federal Bank, FSB, and was established to assume control of IndyMac's bank's assets, its secured liabilities, and its insured deposit account. I think it's being taken over by other concerns, other operations. The FDIC announced plans to open IndyMac Federal Bank (FSB) on July 14, 2008. Until then, depositors would have access their insured deposits through ATMs, their existing checks, and their existing debit cards. Telephone and internet account access was restored when the bank reopened. The FDIC guarantees the funds of its insured account up to $100,000, and declared a special advantage dividend to the roughly 10,000 depositors with funds in excess of the insured amount, guaranteeing 50% of any amount in excess of the 100,000. Yet, even with the pending sales of IndyMac to IMP Management Holdings and its estimated 10,000 uninsured depositors in IndyMac are still at a loss of over $270 million. With $32 billion in assets, IndyMac Bank was one of the largest bank failures in American history. IndyMac Bancorp filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy on July 31, 2008.